It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community, including where the hell have I been for the last few weeks, as well as WWE, NXT, AEW, Impact Wrestling, and much, much more straight after this. So welcome back to the Q&A, and before I do our questions this week, I'll answer where I've been for the last few weeks. Well, I got married, so that's pretty much it. That's why I've been away, not done any videos, happily married to my beautiful wife, and yeah, I'm now back, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to go for you here on SCW, answering your questions. So if you want to be involved in the next Q&A, then all you got to do is, well, you can drop a question in the comments here on YouTube with the hashtag AskSCW, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I know to give you a shout out in the next video, as well as answering your question. But I've got many great questions for you here today, so let's get straight in with it with our first one from Wrestling by Waldridge. And he asks, after the rumoured talks between Adam Cole and Vince McMahon, do you think he's re-signed with WWE? Would you like him to, or would you like to see him elsewhere? Great question to kick things off for us this week then, and I've got to say, yeah, of course, with the rumours going this past week, Adam Cole was meant to meet with Vince McMahon. It ended up being on the location of SmackDown. Rumours are suggesting he's being offered a big bump in wages, and of course, as well as that, a spot potentially on Raw or SmackDown. Even lots of things going through the rumour mill suggesting to come up with creative ideas for Adam Cole. And for me personally, I think that Adam Cole has the keys here to what he wants to do. Apparently the contract is actually, meant to have already expired. He's kept himself going to after SummerSlam. I believe it's his dream to always be in WWE, but he's got a lot of friends in other places, and we're talking All Elite Wrestling. Tony Khan has denied making any sort of formal, contact or trying to offer a contract in any form or fashion. But let's not forget, his partner, the Doctor, DMD, Dr. Britt Baker, is the current AEW Women's Champion. He's been a part of the Bullet Club with Ring of Honor. All of his pals like the Young Bucks and stuff are in AEW, so it's pretty much up to Adam Cole at this point. And for me, if I see Adam Cole, Bebe, on my TV screen, I'm a happy guy. Personally, I have more faith in AEW's booking than I probably would on Raw and SmackDown. The question is, though, with NXT, of course, there are lots of things going on, which we'll be discussing in heavy detail NXT on this video. What happens if Adam Cole, if he was to stay on the black and gold brand? They're going to completely rebrand it seems, with many superstars being released. Adam Cole's been there for 3 or 4 years, so it feels like a change of the guard is definitely in place. It's just what that change will be. And for me personally, if I had to predict it now, I think he will remain in WWE. But I'd be happy either way personally. I think if WWE wants to go down this with a clever route to try and get people invested and interested, I would actually make the match with him and Kyle O'Reilly at NXT TakeOver 36 a loser leaves NXT match. That way you know that he's definitely leaving NXT, and at that point, is he going to Raw? Is he going to SmackDown? Is he leaving the company? Maybe make that a big detail once he loses, and you see him, Vince McMahon perhaps trying to get him to sign with Raw and SmackDown. Maybe just do something, that emphasis to show how important Adam Cole actually is, and make that into a storyline. So when he actually then turns up on Raw or SmackDown, it becomes almost a big deal. Almost a bit like CM Punk 10 years ago. But of course, it's not going to be quite the same. It's not the summer of Punk by any stretch of the imagination, especially while they're doing the summer of Cena right now. But certainly, if the rumours are true of CM Punk joining AEW are legit, and he's expected to be there imminently, you would suggest there that Adam Cole is probably the best placed superstar in WWE that could fill that sort of CM Punk type role in the company. So for me personally, I would say Adam Cole, perhaps to be on SmackDown, would probably be my preference. I could see him going to Monday Night Raw, but if he was to go anywhere, like I said, as long as I can see him on a weekly basis, I'll personally be happy. I mentioned talking about NXT, so let's do it straight away, shall we? Austin Whitley with our next question. What could NXT do to try and rebuild the phenomenon they once were? Fantastic question, this one. And let's be honest here, we have to look where NXT has been to get where they are. So, I mean, if you go for the history of NXT, it was that developmental brand. I mean, of course, we start off with the game show, and I really hope they don't go back to that with Titus O'Neil running around with beer kegs. For me, that was a dark time for NXT, particularly after the first couple of seasons. Anyway, it really lost its way. But when it got its way of this developmental brand in 2012, that's really where it got its strength. It signed a lot of, strong talent from places like Ring of Honor, New Japan, see the likes of Kevin Owens, Adrian Neville, of course, Pac as we better know as, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe. The list goes on and on. We've mentioned Adam Cole in the first question. So, I mean, they've got a lot of established talent that has been in that place. Even Drew McIntyre had a role in NXT. And you could say, while at that point, I think NXT was absolutely a completely different level. We look at the Garganos, Ciampas, and Andrades as well, to Finn in these amazing takeovers we had in 2018. I think the turning point for me has to be when we got to 2019 and when NXT went head-to-head with AEW. That's where things really started to go wrong. The television deal for me took NXT away from its roots, and what was even worse for it, it became a 2-hour show, which I don't think is overexposing necessarily. People got more TV time. You look at someone like Keith Lee, really benefited from that show going from 1 to 2 hours. But at the same time, they were immediately thrown into Survivor Series with Raw and SmackDown. And I think this is really where things turned for NXT, because yes, NXT won it. It was fantastic for the brand at the time, but they were presented as the top brand in WWE when really they were supposed to be the feeder group for Raw and SmackDown. They should always have been kept away, in my opinion, from Raw and SmackDown. Although it seems very fun in that fantasy booking sort of style, the invasion angle, the television, it played out really, really well. But after NXT won, WWE didn't really capitalise on that momentum. And in fact, AEW continued to beat them in those weekly ratings every week. It felt like NXT was the scapegoat to try and stop AEW. They tried to give them the momentum with the Survivor Series win. And from that point onwards, it made Raw and SmackDown look a weaker product. All the NXT call-ups that have been coming up in the last, year to 2 years, arguably a big percentage of them haven't been booked correctly and now either in catering or released. It just feels like there's a real disconnect, and I think fans particularly look at that brand right now and feel that it's just not representing. It's supposed to be the future. It's supposed to be something that see these top stars that are built in NXT go on to main event WrestleManias and stuff like that, and we haven't got that. And I think fans have got a bit tired of it. They've kind of got a bit impatient waiting. Just know, well, if we like this person NXT, whenever they come to Raw and SmackDown, they're not going to be booked well. I mean, Karrion Kross is a prime example. The guy, has been on Raw 3 weeks, NXT champion, and he's lost 2 matches, and it's just, to Jeff Hardy in 2 minutes, who couldn't buy a victory before as well. It's stuff like this that's really hurting that brand. And you could argue as well that Vince McMahon's probably using this as to say, look, it's punishing NXT. We want to change things as it is as the current format. But at the same time, I do think it's very damaging. You built up that star for a year in NXT. Triple H and Shawn Michaels put such work into Karrion Kross to then go on to Raw and be rolled up with Jeff Hardy within 2 minutes. Just catastrophic. One other shout out has to be given about fans. Fans is a big part of what NXT is. You go to a takeover, 15,000 in the house. There's nothing like watching a takeover. I've always said throughout the pandemic, the brand that's been most hurt, Impact Wrestling and NXT. Those two together, and NXT really more than anything, because it's just lost its buzz, it's lost its loop. And when you put all those little parts together, that's what's really harmed the brand. And like I say, you don't go back to the game show. The game show is a very bad idea, and then the winner goes to Raw and SmackDown. I don't like that idea. I like the idea of the original NXT, where you didn't have those lesser name stars. If you've signed someone that's a valuable sort of name, like a Drew McIntyre that's ready, to go back in, you put them back on Raw SmackDown. AJ Styles skipped NXT. Certain superstars don't need to go into black and gold. Why not just have those people that people are really unfamiliar with, get them into that WWE machine and product and get them to the next level? It was always supposed to be those lesser names that were made into new stars. NXT really has been a third brand for a long time, and instead of making new stars, they've actually just taken stars that are good on the independent circuit, got them more familiar with the audience of what they did on the independent circuit, then they go to Raw and SmackDown, and then Vince does what he likes with them. I think that's been where there's the real problem. So, in my opinion, Vince needs to actually treat these stars right when they're called up to Raw and SmackDown. Perhaps there needs to be better communication of how he wants these stars to be presented. And I think personally for me, if they're going to sign talent, put them straight on Raw or SmackDown, unless it's someone that really could deal with that developmental time. You look at someone like a Bianca Belair, which really does feel homegrown. Those are the talents that NXT is what it's supposed to be all about. And I'm sure that it is kind of hitting the reset button. We probably are going to go back to the times of what it was like in 2012 and 2013. But I think once you give it a bit of time, I think NXT can really, it can have that flavour again that it had perhaps in 2014, 15, and then building those stars up to like how it was in 2018. That would be phenomenal. So that's probably what I would do. But yeah, I think that NXT has been a damaged brand for a while, and I think the competition, particularly with AEW, is what's really, really hurt it. Next question coming from the WrestleTron. Do you think the build between Cena and Roman is underwhelming? He personally does. And who do I think the Bucks will be defending the tag team titles at AEW All Out? Wouldn't it be great if it was CM Punk and Daniel Bryan? But no, I don't think that's going to happen. But what I will say is, they're saying they beat every single tag team, so who is going to be the one to step up? I've always believed that eventually Sting and Darby Allin will be going in some form of tag team. It feels like now, from when they did the tag team thing before at Double or Nothing, we haven't really built on it that much since. So I'm not sure if they'll use that going into a tag team title match at All Out. Maybe it's too soon. But if I had to predict a team right now, that'd probably be the one. If not, if we got a winner's cycle, perhaps with Proud and Powerful, Santana Ortiz and FTR, maybe it's Santana Ortiz's turn when it comes to All Out. As for Roman and Cena, has it been underwhelming? Well, yeah, kind of, a little bit. It's been amazing to see Cena come back, and I'm loving the reaction that John Cena is getting. I think that's really, really cool. The fact that we got Cena versus Roman, it is a big money match, there's no argument in it, but I do feel a little bit that we've seen this story play out before. They're done with Cena and Roman. Cena wasn't even featured on SmackDown this last week, and the contract thing, I know it's a bit of a copy of what they did for WrestleMania 20 to get Shawn Michaels in that triple threat match with Benoit and Triple H, but the stipulation just doesn't make sense to me. So for me, I'm not personally a big fan of the way that they've done that. It's really harmed what they tried to do with Finn Balor as well. I'd have kept him out of the situation, although I do believe there is a purpose of why they're doing this storyline with Finn Balor and Roman Reigns, and why it's continuing on a little bit even during the Cena and Roman stuff, and I'll explain that in the next question. But am I a bit underwhelmed? Yes, a little bit. I think Cena should have just been quite clear that he was going for the 17th world title, and we should have seen more interaction between Roman and Cena at this stage, and not the hokey contract thing that they did. I think that was it just made everybody look a little bit bad in my personal opinion. Martin Lorenzo Correa, I'm going to add all the names in there for you there. He says, it's great to see one of my favourites back, AskSCW. Well, it's great to have you back. Thank you so much, Lorenzo. He's got 3 questions for me. He says, what will come out of Roman Reigns and Finn Balor's brawl on this past Friday? Will there be some adjustments to SummerSlam? He says, who can I see Toni Storm feuding with, and what justification can WWE do for all the cuts they have made to the fans? 3 very interesting questions there, and like I said, they're Finn Balor and Roman Reigns. What is going on? Why is this taking over what's supposed to be Roman versus Cena? Well, there could be the idea they can make it into a triple threat match. That certainly would be a lot of fun, and we've not seen that play out before. But I do think that Finn Balor's been saved for the pay-per-view afterwards. Now, Payback is supposed to be a pay-per-view on the calendar this year. If you remember SummerSlam last year, Payback was the week after. Roman returned at SummerSlam and won the championship 7 days later on a separate pay-per-view. And I have a feeling that WWE's Payback this year is probably in a similar placement. It's probably going to be a week after SummerSlam or 2 weeks after SummerSlam, and they are building that feud now. They probably feel that Cena versus Roman is enough, and they have to build for what's going to go on past this. And Balor is the one mistreated. It's great to see that Balor will get that championship opportunity, but I think this is why they're trying to build that story with some time rather than rush it after SummerSlam. And yeah, I think that's why they've put everything together. But yeah, like I said, I'm not the best pleased the way they've done it with the Cena on the contract thing, but I can see this is their way of trying to tie in everything together. But Balor and Reigns, when it should go down, which I believe will be a Payback, should be an awesome match. But yeah, I really hope that Finn can get a really strong performance when he faces the Tribal Chief eventually. Who can I see Toni Storm feuding with? Hopefully not catering. She's only been on TV once, hasn't she, so far? I want to see more from Toni Storm. I think she's got the potential to be a top star on SmackDown. I think Carmella would be a good shout for a feud right now, because Carmella's just come out of the Women's Championship scene right now, or as a contender anyway, trying to win the belt off Bianca Belair. I'd like to see Toni kind of almost put in position to go for that championship in perhaps 3 or 4 months' time as we get towards Royal Rumble season. Maybe someone like Zelina Vega, but she's already faced her. Liv Morgan's not doing anything, although it's babyface versus babyface. So I guess right now I probably would say Carmella would be the one I'd want to see. As for the cuts, well, I tell you what, we've got lots of questions that come flying in as well, including Derek Stark, the Egomaniac. He says, what do I think of all the releases WWE has had over the last few months, and where do I see everyone going? Dylan Ketchum also asking about the latest NXT releases, where they'll be heading to, and also Nubico asking my thoughts there on the latest releases also. Let's tackle everything under one, shall we? And let me just say, it's awful to see. Look, I'm not a fan about talking about the releases because, I mean, look, I don't like seeing it. And of course, you know, I understand there's parts of business and stuff like that. I mean, people lose their jobs in different formats of life, but I mean, it just feels like why WWE has tied so many people down to contracts in recent years, and some of those even as early as this year, to then just let them go. It just seems absolutely mental to me. But I'll tell you what, Sean Rossappa's got the list here. I've taken this tweet, and so I can quote every name that's of the latest releases. So the latest names to go are Bobby Fish, we've got Bronson Reed, which is probably the most shocking of the lot, Jake Atlas, we've got Ari Sterling, Kona Reeves, Leon Ruff, Stephon Smith, Tyler Rust, Zachariah Smith, Asher Hale, Giant Zanzia, which I hope I said that correctly, and Mercedes Martinez. There's definitely a number of shocks when you look amongst those, and I said Bronson Reed is probably the one I'm most shocked about. I mean, he was North American champion just the end of June. This guy was on dark matches on Raw and SmackDown. This guy was expected to be going up to the main roster. In fact, he was the part of the thumbnail I made of superstars that will be going up to Raw and SmackDown from NXT. So I'm shocked that Bronson's been let go, and I think it's a big mistake, especially when you look at if this rumoured repackaged NXT that we're going to get of this developmental sort of people. Bronson Reed for me wasn't one of these names that was taken from Japan and other places where he felt a household name before. He felt like he was someone that would fit the bill. If Vince is looking for bigger guys to, you know, represent on their brand, Bronson has that. He's a bigger dude. The Tsunami thing was really getting over. I was shocked that he was let go. Bobby Fish, a part of the Undisputed Era as well. Alright, I understand he's gone to do nothing since, but I mean, come on, like the UE, there's no chance to reform this group. Arguably, that's where they were at their strongest. I would have said you could put the UE back together at some point down the line to put them on Raw and SmackDown, because that's where it felt they were most relevant. Mercedes Martinez just hasn't had the rub of the green in NXT and WWE in general, but still, I mean, I'm sure AEW will pick up the phone for her anytime soon. Tyler Rust, I mean, what happened to Diamond Mine? We mentioned about the UE a minute ago. Roderick Strong has a new group, and he's the only member now that can compete in it. It doesn't really make any sense. We've got a trainer and a manager and Roderick Strong. The Diamond Mine has to be finished, surely, already. Just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless he's going to get in some new members, I have no idea what they're going to do with that. But I mean, for me, it's sad to see there's such an array of talent now. I could go through every single name of where I think they're going to go. What I will say is that I do think right now there's been 52 releases this year from WWE. It's hard for so many companies to get every single talent. So this isn't as simple anymore of saying, oh, they'll all go to Impact or all go to you know AEW or Ring of Honor, but I'm hoping that this talent will find a place of work, because there's a lot of great talent there and a lot of young talent as well. I think a lot of them deserve it. You can see perhaps the likes of the X Division taking up some of these names and really, you know, thriving with having some of those sort of stars in there. You know, we look at someone like Bronson Reed. I think he could be a great Impact World Champion, actually. AEW would be a great shout also. It's hard to know where these people are going to go. I just hope that they do find a place to work. But when you look at other superstars that are not around right now, I mean, The Fiend as well, not with the company either. I mean, that was a week ago when I've not been doing videos. It's just crazy. Braun Strowman, there's so many people without work right now. Ruby Soho, Buddy Murphy. I just hope they all find a place of work. But it's very difficult, isn't it? But yeah, what could WWE's justification for fans? You know, if they're going to release all this talent, make sure that the talent they do have, make sure you use it right. Make sure that you give the fans the best you can give, and try and treat the talent you've got well. The problem is, do I have faith that there'll be no more cuts? No, I feel that there could be more. It just was a very ruthless time in WWE. They're oversaturated, in my personal opinion, of getting all these talent signed to stop them going to other companies. Now they realize that they don't need all this talent, or they don't think some of this talent will succeed, and that's fair if that's the reasons they believe. But yeah, it just shows this is why you shouldn't stockpile all these talents, because why do it to begin with? It just seems a complete waste. And for those that are saying, oh, this is to make AEW sign all these different talents, and that way they're going to be oversaturated themselves. I mean, they've got a big roster on their own, and I just think that's a load of rubbish. So I don't believe in that rumor either. But yeah, it's hard to really give a great answer for this, unfortunately, because we're doing this again for what I think is the 5th or 6th time this year. I just hope that wrestlers are treated well. I hope that the ones that are without WWE now can find themselves a greener, a better pasture in another company, because I mean, other talents have shown it's out there, it can be done, and that they can really succeed and really build a name for themselves outside of WWE. It's not the be all and end all anymore, so I hope that a lot of these talents can land on their feet and have successful futures wherever they end up. Let's take the other Noob & Co questions, shall we then? My thoughts on the controversial promos from Charlotte Flair and Max Caster this week, of course, with the mental health stuff that's been going on. Will Nikki A.S.H hold the Raw Women's title into 2022? And do I think that Malakai Black really retired Cody Rhodes? I'll keep it short and sweet on the promos. I find them distasteful. I didn't enjoy them. I wasn't entertained, so I don't know why they were actually included in the product for both of the companies. What's even more a bit amusing is that AEW with Max Caster actually as well. That was pre-recorded ahead of time. There's time for people to actually see that before it goes out. So I don't see why someone didn't pull that to the side and go, this isn't right. Not a fan of it. As for Nikki A.S.H, I would be surprised if she's Raw Women's Champion at the end of SummerSlam at this rate. I don't really have the confidence that WWE are booking her in the strongest possible format so far as Raw Women's Champion. All feels a bit of a fluke so far. In fact, it reminds me almost of when Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight Championship back in 2006. So I hope they build Nikki well, but I definitely don't think she's got a long title reign. If she's going to hold the belt for a little while, I don't see it going into 2022. I know we've been used to having long-term women's champions of late. I don't see it with Nikki A.S.H somehow. And as for Malakai Black and Cody Rhodes, well, for me, it's definitely storyline. It's all angle. When Cody was doing that, don't get me wrong, he suckered me in, as I'm sure he suckered a few in. But the second Malakai Black came out and attacked him with a crutch, it's clear it's writing Cody off TV. He's got that big show thing coming up again that he's going to be filming off. So he was written off TV this time last year to record for that show. Season 2 now going to be recorded. I believe that was the time he was squashed by Brody Lee. It's time he's now been squashed now by Malakai Black. I think setting up for a program for when Cody returns, which, yeah, I look forward to seeing the rematch because Malakai Black looked absolutely phenomenal on Homecoming, and if this is the way AEW is going to book him, yeah, I'm heavily invested in what they're going to do with that character. Jonesy Chats Wrestling with our next questions now. What do you predict happening in WWE for the rest of 2021? More releases? No, let's hope not, for goodness sakes. Let's hope there's no more of them. But to give some genuine ones there, as I said earlier in the video, Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns, I'm pretty sure will take place at Payback, which I think will be a week or two after SummerSlam. That's why it's going to go down. I think Roman Reigns remains Universal Champion to the end of the year, towards Survivor Series, where I think The Rock will return to WWE. I think that's going to happen. We will get a WWE draft. I'm sure there'll be some more dodgy booking on Monday Night Raw, and it's going to be a hard show to watch as always. Baron Corbin will get happy. We'll have a King of the Ring tournament, perhaps even a Queen of the Ring tournament as well, has been rumoured. As well as that, I'm sure there'll be multiple NXT call-ups as well to Raw and SmackDown. Adam Cole certainly could be one of them after SummerSlam. We'll have to wait and see. And I'm sure the ratings will be a big discussion point, whether they do well, whether they don't do well. It's going to be the same old WWE. It's a roller coaster ride, and we're going to stick around for it. And actually, to say that, I believe there's going to be a Saudi show as well. So those are the things I can say that I think with confidence happen between now and the end of 2021. Fingers crossed, though, we just get some consistent, well-booked TV from WWE. That's all I'm looking for. Some, good build of characters and trying to, use the talent properly. That's pretty much what I want to see. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm going too far with that. We're now going to hopeful things for the rest of WWE in 2021 rather than what I actually can see actually happening. DWE, Dan Williams now has got our next question now. If CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, depending which way you want to go with it, is going to AEW, who would you book their first feuds with against and why? For Dan, he would actually go CM Punk should go straight away and win the world title. And for Daniel Bryan versus Ricky Starks would be a great first feud. I love the idea of Bryan Danielson against Ricky Starks. I mean, that's a really cool idea. And I think Bryan Danielson feels like the kind of guy to me, if he's going to AEW, he wants to have all these dream matches. He wants to probably work with some of the likes of a Kenny Omega, those Hangman Pages, those sort of talents. But then, like you say, go against these talents and build up the new stars for the future. And I can see Starks being one of those names on that list. But I would start with Bryan Danielson against Kenny Omega. I think that feels like a big dream match. The big babyface thing against the Elite of the Hill. I really like the idea of that match. It would feel a big time match to have, and I would love to see it at Full Gear. If it was for a championship match or not, that's irrelevant in my personal opinion. I would love to see that go down. I really want to see actually CM Punk against Hangman Page, but I think Punk has to come in as the babyface. Can't see it any other way. So for me, Malakai Black, I think those two in some sort of program, it's just, for me, it's just excitement. Why? I just really want to see it. I think it would be really, really cool to see it go down. But CM Punk versus Cody. could be an interesting feud as well, because CM Punk could almost be good in transitioning Cody into coming back into being the heel, and obviously that's sort of, the classic thing we saw CM Punk a decade ago. CM Punk can play into that very, very well, and how this company is sort of building those sort of, the EPs are at the top and stuff like that. So that could be an interesting feud to go down as well. But if I had my personal choices, I would go Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, and I would go CM Punk against Malakai Black. Personally, would love to see both of those matches so much. FEF Wrestling, what other matches would you add to SummerSlam that aren't already announced? And for him, Sheamus versus Priest and an Intercontinental Championship ladder match. You've taken 2 of mine already for me, thank you. And how would you see this Death Triangle Andrade story ending? He actually sees the Lucha Bros turning on Pac. Certainly is a strong possibility with that. We'll start with that one off, I think, because, where else can this go, really? Unless you can have some great matches with Phoenix Andrade, you can have Penta versus Andrade as well, and then Pac finally. But I do feel, like you said, that I think the Lucha Bros will eventually turn. Andrade seems to have a lot of influence, and I do think that AEW loves their factions, and I think those as a faction feels very, very strong. It'll push Andrade very high up the card very quickly. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think that is a likely one that could go down. As for matches then for SummerSlam, those 2 matches, love the sound of them, particularly Priest and Sheamus. I think is nailed on to happen. I think Nakamura versus Apollo is more likely, but I would much be in preference of the ladder match idea. Gets more people on the card as well. I actually think as well we will get RK Bro against AJ Styles and Omos. I think that match is set to go down for the Raw Tag Team Championships. And trying to think elsewhere on the card of matches that haven't been announced already. We could get Alexa Bliss against Doudrop, but I'm very, very worried that it's going to be that bloody Lily Doll tag team environment with Eva Marie. Let's hope that doesn't go down, but let's wait and see. But if I had to give a match that I wanted that you've not suggested, I would go with Raw Tag Team Championships of RK Bro against AJ Styles and Omos. That's one I really, really want to see. Mike, Tanhab's Mike now with the next 2 questions now. Says, in his opinion, what is the greatest SummerSlam match ever, and what SummerSlam match doesn't get enough love from the fans? Well, let's take that one first, shall we? Because I know his personal favourite is Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect from SummerSlam 1991. Heck of a match. I love that match. Personally, I'm a bit nostalgic when it comes to SummerSlam. I have got a big soft spot for 1992 Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog in Wembley Stadium. It's the first SummerSlam I ever watched, and it just felt such a big deal. It's just that the patriotism in me of it being in the UK, Davey Boy winning it and being an epic 25-30 minute encounter. I really, really enjoyed that one. So for me personally, that's my favourite SummerSlam match of all time. But so a match that I think that's underrated, perhaps underappreciated. Very good question. I tell you what that I don't hear enough talked about is actually from 2017, the Fatal 4-Way. Now I know Dan, who has actually put a question earlier, that's his favourite match in SummerSlam history, and I think that Fatal 4-Way with Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, and I believe it was Samoa Joe, that is a barn burner of a match. And definitely, if you've not watched that in recent years, I'd recommend going and give that another watch, because that's a fantastic Fatal 4-Way, one of the best Fatal 4-Ways in WWE history. I don't hear it get enough love in the wrestling community, so that will be my shout out for you, which I think is probably not getting the most love from the fans everywhere, apart from Dan and myself. Your second question also ties in with Jamie's question this week, so I'm going to take both of them together. Do you agree that Cameron Grimes versus LA Knight, the program, is one of the best storylines going around? Both have brought out the best in each other, and Jamie goes on to say that how do I see it ending? Do we see LA Knight warming to Cameron Grimes and they become a face tag team? LA is surprisingly good as a babyface. I would agree. I have seen his face work previously in Power. I think he's fantastic. Cameron Grimes could be, taking Ted DiBiase's advice and finding a way out, or could we see something else entirely? So, yeah, it's going from both questions there. I'm really enjoying the LA and Cameron Grimes storyline. I do think it's one of the better ones in NXT. I would have liked to have seen more sympathy done towards Cameron Grimes, but they have found ways to do that and do it well. They've used comedy very well. Also, I did find it was very humorous what they did with the grizzled young veterans on the golf course. I thought that was really, really fun to see. And the fact that LA Knight actually turned once again after doing the tag team thing for 1 week on Cameron Grimes, I thought was quite good as well, because it just shows that dominance that LA Knight is that cocky heel that needs to be put in his place, and Cameron Grimes, is the guy that we feel sympathy for, and if he takes Ted DiBiase's advice, he can go eventually beat LA Knight. So, my personal opinion, I do think it's one of the best storylines in wrestling all around at the moment. It's not the best one entirely for me. I am more a fan of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. I'm loving how that is, developing in AEW, but I do think that this is definitely a close second, or in the top 3 for sure. For me, I'm really enjoying what they're doing with LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. Definitely been one one of my favourite feuds of the year to watch. And yeah, I mean, for me, as an end game, I think more likely Cameron Grimes will find a way out of being the butler, and I do think eventually he will become the $1 Million champion. And the way it's been played out, it's been good from when the storyline started to where it is now, still heavily invested. So yeah, great job from Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I do think that they are doing a very good one with this one. Mark Q, World Order, the next question now. With Kiera Hogan reportedly wrapping up her time with Impact Wrestling, do you see Tasha Steelz being a viable contender for the Knockouts title? If so, is she the one to eventually dethrone Deonna Purrazzo? Loving this question. First off, I want to say that I'm really sorry that Kiera Hogan has left Impact Wrestling and she looks to be going to AEW. Now, I know her partner is with AEW and perhaps she wants to try something different. Totally fine. Wish her all the best. I just hope it works out for her. I really hope that she gets time on Dynamite and not really stuck on Dark and Elevation, because I really enjoyed the work that we're seeing with her in Impact Wrestling. Love the tag team with Tasha Steelz. I'm still upset we never got to see Fire and Flavor against the Iconics. That never was a thing. It's a shame to see. But let's tackle the question, which is Tasha Steelz and what she brings to the table. And I think, yes, she's definitely a viable contender for Deonna Purrazzo. One thing I really like is that actually outside of the ring, it has been shown that these two are actually really good friends, and I've seen discussed in interviews of Tasha Steelz and Deonna Purrazzo, and they could actually work that into a very good storyline. So for me personally, I definitely would like to see him. Is she the one to take the title from Deonna Purrazzo? It's hard to say who is at this point, because Deonna, she's everywhere. She's doing everything. She has been arguably the most dominant champion in wrestling for the longest time now, probably along with Roman Reigns, probably along with Kenny Omega being the belt collector. But Deonna Purrazzo has done a fantastic job. I'm quite worried actually when we say though her appearance at Triple Mania coming up, that could be one where she could lose the belt, but she's also going to be on Empower for NWA, so she could be on this championship for a while to come. And Tasha Steelz is someone that's within Impact Wrestling. You could make a star out of doing it, so I would be a fan of the idea, and I certainly would be a fan of the idea of the feud. So I guess it's a time will tell situation, but they'll definitely push Tasha as, you know, a solo star going forward. She would have to take the babyface role for this as well, but I think fans would get on board with it. She's done great work as a heel, but I think it could connect really well as a face, so I like the idea you presented here. Don Mills of our next question now. He says, is the spear used by too many wrestlers these days? Yes, it's definitely been used too much. I mean, the thing is, with the spear, it's also used as like a signature move as well, which I think really does harm the move personally. We used to that to Roman Reigns, Goldberg, and, you know, Christian Cage, Edge, and all these other stars that have been using the spear. Of course, Rhino is another one. It comes to a point where you just feel I see it far too often. So it's a quick answer, but yeah, I want to see different moves used. I was so happy to just go on a slightly different tangent that Roman Reigns has introduced the guillotine into his arsenal. I like the fact that at least Goldberg has the jackhammer that follows it. You know, Edge does use the spear, but does use other moves as well. Christian Cage does have the impaler, so there are other moves that help, that protect this, but it's a move that's used far too often in wrestling. And when it's used as a signature move as well, you see lots of other superstars using it as a basic move in matches also, which always get kicked out at 2. It does take the legitimacy away from the move. It's almost like the super kick is used far too often these days. So yeah, in my personal opinion, it's used far too much. Last question this week coming from Cherry Jerry. Are you Team Domino's Pizza or are you Team Pabst Blue Ribbon? I hope I've said that right, and you can clearly see I've never had one of those in my life. But I think what you're going with this is to do with the Nick Gage pizza slicer spot against Chris Jericho on the recent Fight for the Fallen, if I'm not mistaken. And of course they did that, and then they went straight to adverts, and Domino's Pizza was the first advert. You couldn't make it up, and I must admit I did have a bit of a giggle at a TV screen. But yeah, if Domino's are unhappy with that, I can kind of see their point of view. It's not really a great advertisement. You see someone's using a pizza slicer to slice up an opponent at the same time they're slicing up a pizza. It doesn't really make me very hungry watching a Nick Gage match. I don't know how anyone else feels when they're watching one of those styles of wrestling matches, but I don't really think to myself, this is the time I need to go to the cupboard or order a takeaway. I don't really think that. So for me personally, I would turn around and say, I can side with someone if they say, I'm not a fan of you actually promoting my product alongside this product at the same time, especially a pizza being sliced at the same time that Chris Jericho is being sliced. Yeah, if they've got legit gripe with it, I can see their point of view, I can't lie. Thank you so much for watching Ask SCW. It's always been great to have your questions in the wrestling community. I am looking to try and do more videos this week. We'll look to try and do a live Q&A. As well as that, the latest retro will be coming up. That is now dated for August the 18th. That is currently penciled in for on a Wednesday. It will be SummerSlam 2013, which is it's the winner that you've picked from the poll that was put on the channel. So thank you so much for everyone who voted. And as well as that, like I say, if more videos do find their way to come to me, to come out to you, I will drop them through the week. But keep an eye on all things SCW. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I can't wait to interact with you in the comment section right now. And go and check out some other videos that are popping up on your screen right about now. Have yourselves a great day. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. All the best.